beautiful pumpkins, and welcome to this reading. This is going to be a message from your inner child. And before we even get into this reading, I want to say if you are not in a space where you feel safe, comforted, protected, this might be a pick a card that you will want to skip. I find that doing inner child work with the self, you always want to make sure that you're in a safe, supported environment, because sometimes this can really drudge up deep inner childhood wounds that we aren't always ready to face. So just make sure that you are feeling good about going into this reading. And I also want to remind everyone that though I am a student of psychology, I am not a licensed therapist, clinician, psychiatrist, or anything on that regard. So just use your own discernment with this information. Do not take me as somebody that is a licensed professional. So now that we have that out of the way, I want to invite the rest of you that have chosen to stay to really take some time with yourself for this reading. We are going to do a group candle, and when you're choosing a pile, it's okay if you feel called to multiple, but the most important thing I would ask you to do when choosing this pile is make sure that either give yourself a hug. That might sound silly if that's something you've never done, but wrap your arms around yourself, really comfort yourself as that loving, supporting parent and adult that you are now, and assure that inner child that you're here. So give yourself a hug, and you can also place your hands over your heart center as well as over the stomach. I find that this also helps us to tap into our own energy meridian, and it also gives us this energetic feeling of feeling very supported by ourselves. So that's what I would ask you to do while choosing. And I'm going to go ahead and put some meditation music on so you can have a minute or so with each pile. You can pause the video if you need more time. But this first pile is pile number 1, and it has a rose quartz point on top. And there will be timestamps for these. Pile number 2 has a heart rose quartz in the middle. And then pile number 3 has a tumbled rose quartz. And rose quartz is very significant to this. We'll talk about that before the candle in a moment or so. But let's go ahead. I'm going to put some meditation music on so that you can select your pile. And then we're going to move into the group candle. So make sure that you stick around for that, or you can click to the timestamp for the candle as well. And we'll talk about the rose quartz, but I'll go ahead and give you some time. All right, so we're going to go ahead and work with this candle here. We're doing a group candle today, and I'll explain. But I want to point out before we get into this that as I was sitting here meditating myself, there are children outside playing, like screaming, not in a bad way. Like, you know how kids play and they just like get loud. And I was like, wow, what a beautiful way to like open this reading is literally with the sound of children playing. So I got like the chills. It was a really beautiful moment, but you probably won't be able to hear it because my microphone for this setup is like really good at keeping the noises out. So you probably weren't able to hear anything, but Anyways, we're going to talk about the rose quartz and then do the group candle. So the reason I chose rose quartz, if any of you are familiar with crystals, this was probably kind of obvious, but rose quartz to me is the the crystal of self-love. And I find that for most people, your first crystal, not for everybody, but most people's first crystal is either a rose quartz, a clear quartz, or an amethyst, or sometimes a citrine. I find that those are like the first introductory crystals. And I feel like when it comes to rose quartz, it is such a gentle energy. And it's an energy that if you're working to heal your own inner child wounds or work with your own inner child, it's a crystal that I find is so important to self-development, self-trust. And I would recommend anybody that feels any type of way about themselves, even if you think you're the most confident person in the room, at all times, like I feel like everybody benefits from rose quartz. I have never met a single person on the planet that was like, nope, don't really need that. Like, even if you already love yourself, I just find that it's a really beautiful energy. And maybe I'm biased because it's my favorite crystal, but I find that it's just such a loving, tender, gentle energy. And I literally wear it. Like, I have jewelry of this. It's all over my house. My biggest crystal that I own, this one is a rose quartz too. Like, it's everywhere. So if you don't have rose quartz in your collection, I feel like this is a strong call to maybe look into where you could find some. Now, let's go ahead and do the group candle together. So I chose a pink candle because pink often represents self-love. And I find that when we do inner child work, self-love and self-trust is some of the most important work that you'll do. And this gets deeply into shadow work as well. But I wanted to really come together and everybody put their energy into this candle instead of splitting everybody up into 3 separate pink candles, because I want our energy to be like very supercharged with that like electricity of love and gentle loving kindness. So let's go ahead, everybody, and just place your hands over your heart. This allows us to connect our energy to the vibrational frequency of love, which is the highest vibration that we as humans can attach our energy to or align our energy to. And you can set intention for anything you want. It doesn't have to be self-love or self-trust, but I would ultimately say just set an intention that is in alignment with you falling in love with yourself, your life, your inner child, all of that. But again, you can use this however you want to. Just really send that energy of love into this so that all of us can feel that. I myself feel it at this very moment, and I'm going to be sending all of that out to you because we all are connected on this like energy grid. So let's go ahead and take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take my enchanted lighter, and we are going to light this candle up. All right. Oh, the energy must have been real good going into this. And I say that because the wick kind of started to churn down in toward itself, which isn't uncommon, but it immediately kind of like bowed back up. Like it was like, ooh, I want to shrink back from this, but like, no, I'm going to like stand tall. So what a beautiful message. And I feel like the flame is actually quite large for having just lit this and like quite centered, like very straight and up, like, which I feel like when you do any kind of candle magic or intention setting, this is something you want to see. You want the flame to be like pretty sturdy and pretty large. Like different sizes can mean different things, but I find that for the intention we're working with right now, this is like a nice, gentle, beautiful energy. So I love that we have that, and we're going to let this burn throughout the entire reading for us. I'm going to keep it up here so we can keep our eye on it. And now I'm going to go ahead and get into that first pile. All right, pile number 1. So if you chose this pile, you would have chosen the rose quartz point. And this crystal is very special to me specifically. It came at a time when I had like previously had a lot of money hangups in my life. I couldn't afford something like this, and I was newly coming into a place where I could afford it. And this was like such a precious thing that I was able to get for myself. And so it stays with me. Like it was something that just meant a lot to me and still really does. But the thing I want to point out to you for your inner child, if you chose this pile, is notice how perfect this stone was crafted to be. And I feel like for many of you, your inner child, maybe you had parents that expected that of you, that they were going to polish you into a version of them that they never were able to achieve. And this doesn't have to be like biological parents. This could be mentors. This could be just somebody who really shaped you as a child. And I feel like they expected a lot of you, but I feel like under that pressure, you cracked because we have the tip of this point actually broken off. And I feel like that's kind of what it feels like this has left you with a chip on your shoulder. And even if you look at the crystal, though it was made to be so perfect, there are some slight imperfections in it. And I feel like that's you. You judge your own self, and this comes from child wounds. You judge yourself for not being perfect, not saying things the right way, not doing things the right way, not having the talent or skills to do something in a way that you feel like others are just better at than you, or I'm just hearing like a lot of self-judgment. So that is something that was coming through with just that crystal. And I did shuffle your oracle cards already, which we'll get to a little later in the reading, but we're just going to actually take this deck fully and give it a couple shuffles through here and then get your tarot cards out first, just to see what your inner child really wants to convey to us first. And all the decks I used today will be linked down below for you. And let's just see what your inner child has to say. So I'm going to scoot this over. So we have for you the Devil. Interesting. I'm going to refocus the camera really quick just so we can get a really good look at these cards. So we have the Devil for you. We have the Three of Swords. Ooh. We have the Ace of Swords. We have Judgment and the Sun. Okay. So I feel like in your childhood, something that's really coming out for me as I'm looking at these is that you might be someone that is always trying to protect the image of your family. Like you constantly will say things about your caretakers or aunts, uncles, siblings that's like, oh, like they do this and it's so terrible, but oh, no, like don't get the wrong impression. I really love my family. And I feel like what your inner child really wants you to pay attention to is that it is actually okay for you to have misgivings about your family members. You don't have to keep projecting this picture perfect image of family to other people, because I guarantee you on a inner child level, you don't actually feel that way. Your inner child is struggling because it didn't have a good upbringing. Now, hear me out. This is where the misconception comes in. It's that a lot of us as adults have been very conditioned from adults that if you had food on your table, a roof over your head, clothes on your back, and you got to school on time, that meant that your life wasn't that bad. Or even if you had a little bit more, you had vacations once a year with your family, or you were able to afford like Disneyland or something. Now that's not going to be everybody. There are plenty of families that were not able to do that. But I feel like you were given this idea that because your family could provide for you the basic needs, that they did good enough. But here's the thing. To your inner child self, it might seem like to you as an adult that this is really small. Like, your mother got upset at you when you were like 3 or 4 or even 2. Maybe this goes even younger for you, and just didn't want to be around you for the rest of the day. Now, this is mom or father or whoever unable to regulate their own nervous system. They are upset and they are having a hard time regulating their anger. And the child just sees that because we don't understand as children. We don't have the cognitive behavioral skills to be able to know what is frustrating mom and be able to self-soothe. So the problem with that is inner us, our childlike self now, has internalized that and sees that as abandonment. Oh my gosh, I did this thing that was so horrible when I was a baby, basically. And now I harbor this internal guilt of everybody's going to abandon me if I don't do everything perfectly or how it was asked of me. So I feel like ultimately you maybe glorify your childhood when honestly, that to me is a red flag, period, when anybody glorifies their childhood. Not because I think everybody's childhood had to be like doom and gloom and so terrible, but I feel like it is inevitable that parents will or caregivers will traumatize their children. There is no parent on the face of this earth that isn't going to do that in some capacity, and it's because we're human. But the issue is that most parents, because they didn't have the tools either, weren't able to come back to that child's level and say, hey, mommy or daddy is really sorry that this happened, and try to explain it in a way that that child at that age could understand. And this is where a lot of these feelings will come up. So with the son, I feel like ultimately you did have maybe a happier childhood, but the things that hurt you, it's like you feel like you're not allowed to talk at them, because I also see that you have been deeply wounded by someone or something. And the devil is here because the devil talks about addiction. And this doesn't have to mean drugs and alcohol. It can. But this can also be addiction to TV, addiction to food. And I'm not talking about like just food addiction. This can be in the form of all kinds of ways that we behave around food. It's not just that you can't stop eating food. This kind of talks about anything that is too much of something that can be unhealthy for our soul. And when the devil crops up as an adult perspective from you, it's almost like I'm feeling like because your inner child is like screaming these things at you, like you need to pay attention to me, these things weren't okay. There might be parts of you that want to numb that out. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be in the form of drugs and alcohol, though it can be. It can be in the form of many things. It can be as dark as drugs and alcohol. It can be as something as small as just, every time you start to feel something, I'm going to go hobbit hole up in bed and binge watch Netflix and just kind of zone out and not feel through this. And I feel like your inner child honestly has a lot to say and is feeling very judged by you, judged by others, and it wants space to be made for it, basically. And I think one of the best things you probably can do is really just sit with yourself. No distractions. Maybe I could say like a candle flame might be good, or an incense or something, or soft music with no lyrics, but just sitting with yourself and asking, what do you have to tell me? What can I honor in you? And that will bring major clarity to the surface. And even if you have to get angry, I'm sensing that many of you also are afraid to get angry. And that is also something else that is given early on, being afraid to get angry. And anger serves a purpose. We are allowed to be angry about the things that we didn't receive, or we didn't have access to, or ways that our parents were treated us because they themselves didn't know better. You're allowed to be mad. And I feel like your inner child is asking you to do that, to be mad and to let yourself have full expression. So we're going to go ahead and see what oracle cards come up for you. So we have step out of your comfort zone. That is interesting. We were just talking about, I feel like because many of you may be uncomfortable with anger, stepping out of your comfort zone is it's uncomfortable. And we also have it's time to release negativity. So I feel like this just kind of mirrors exactly what I just said. It's time for you to, I feel like maybe you have a lot of conversations in your head or like deep and internally, because this is a full moon in Scorpio, which we also just had last week. This is a full moon in Scorpio, and Scorpio is always here to, like, Scorpio is a very internal sign. Like, if you are a Scorpio placement, you know how much people have to try to like get things out of you. Like you will keep your mouth shut about everything until you feel safe and ready to express. And I feel like in order for you to let these things go and to really work on healing that inner childlike self, you're going to have to give that negativity space to breathe. And it's going to be uncomfortable. Like, frankly, inner child work isn't comfortable. I can't think of a single time where I've talked about this with someone else or done it myself that it was comfortable. It's not comfortable. It can be very difficult work. So we also have for you harvest. I'm wondering if some of you have childhood memories of the fall time that like maybe there's a specific memory. I'm seeing that some of you have memories from Halloween or Samhain, depending on what you celebrate. I'm sensing that there's just like some fall time memories that need to be released from you. Like something happened. Maybe you like ate too much candy and got sick, and a parent like really judged you for doing that. And I know to our adult selves, when we're not familiar with inner child work, that can seem like, oh my gosh, my parent was just upset. Like I would be upset at my kid too. But ultimately, from that child's perspective, they don't have the capacity to fully grasp what the adult is grasping and what they're angry about. So approaching it with gentle love and kindness is going to be so much more helpful to that child's development. And that child is you. So I am feeling like there is something about the fall time. It also could be that maybe you lost someone in the fall time and like fall was your favorite thing to do with someone as a child, like maybe a past aunt or an uncle I'm hearing. And during the fall time, you would do something with this person and they have passed on, and your inner child wants to feel through that, express that, and mourn that. And with success, I feel like this just really parrots what we have up here with this rose quartz, talking about how you were maybe really primed for success in a certain way. And you have a chip on your shoulder about some of the things that you were forced to do as a child that maybe really weren't in alignment with you. So we also have for you fate. And we have for you speak truth. So I feel like for some of you that have had issues with like early on childhood that were really like traumatic experiences, another way that you'll be able to honor your inner child is to speak about it. And it doesn't mean that you have to go out and make a podcast or write a book about it. You can just speak about it to somebody that you feel you can have confidence in them not spilling everything that you say. And that can be so therapeutic for you. I feel like many of you have a blocked throat chakra because you haven't allowed yourself to express how you have felt. And it's actually hurting your ability, like, especially if you're someone that loses their voice like every year and gets sick with like laryngitis every year, that is a strong indication of something going on with your throat chakra. And you need to allow yourself to have expression. That's what your inner child wants, is you to express. And even if you don't want to talk to someone, you can also talk to yourself. That's okay. Find a safe space where you can go and do that. And with the Fate card, this to me is all about you taking control of your fate and your destiny. And the sooner you get in touch with this inner child aspect of you, the sooner you are going to feel empowered and ready to move forward. I feel like some of you have really felt like let down by yourselves and by other people. And when you do this inner child work, it's going to make you feel lighter. It's going to make you feel like you have an inner glow, and that like there's an egg depicted here that is like adorned in this beauty, right? I feel like that's going to be you. You're going to feel like you are ready to like be reborn. Some of you also, because I'm seeing this egg here, could need to go back and actually work on trauma around birth. It is my personal belief that birth in general, no matter how you came out, birth in general is a very traumatic experience for the mother and the child. And you're in this like warm, cozy place, and then all of a sudden you're not. And I feel like that stuff stays in our psyche. It's traumatic for the mother and the child. And Some of you maybe need to do work around healing that. Maybe you feel like the world is a completely unsafe place for you to even exist because there is this unconscious like birth story that was just so traumatic for you. So that is another message that is coming through very strong. And I have for you a council of light, divine orchestration, helpers in subtle realms. So I feel like with this card, the more you tap into your inner child, the more your psychic gifts are also going to be enhanced. You're actually going to be able to talk more to your guides. I feel like many of you have been trying to make a connection. And I also see that we have like the chakra system showing up here in the middle. And I feel like, I don't know why chakras are coming through so strong in this reading, but they are. I feel that with you working on this healing, this beautiful healing work, you will actually be able to be more in alignment with your own energy centers. You know, that throat chakra, I also feel like is kind of coming up here, especially with all of the blue that we've got going on. But I feel that many of you are going to be so much more centered energetically. Like this was like the missing puzzle piece you've been looking for. And lastly, for you, I have a, what is the word for this? An affirmation for you. And it says, through prayer and meditation, I create a ripple effect of peace in the world. So I also feel like this is a big, strong pull to meditate, to get more grounded in yourself. And something I want to point out to you, don't flag me, YouTube, but this watercoloring here kind of looks like a female organ, if you know what I'm saying. And again, I feel like this could be a representation of the birth story, right? We just talked about that. So this to me says like maybe even getting in touch with your own body, especially if you yourself are a mother and you haven't allowed yourself to explore your own birth giving story. That could be something that also has like re-traumatized and opened that up for you. So, you know, get to know yourself. And I want to reiterate, like with any of this work, inner child work, I don't want to say that it's dangerous because I don't believe it's dangerous. It's that sometimes it can unlock things in us that, you know, just always make sure that you are supported and in a loving environment, or that you even have access to a therapist would be so valuable to go through with doing any of this work. I feel like that's very critical, is making sure that you have support for this. So that is what I have for you, pile number one. I love you so much. You are such a beautiful, sweet spirit. And please do not forget, when you stand up in your own authenticity, you empower everyone around you to do the same. I do have my Instagram, my TikTok, all the good links down below, my podcast. I also recently opened up a Patreon. Many of you have actually asked me for this, and that was one of the reasons I created it. You just wanted a place where you could support me, and I'm happy to report that if you are able to do that or want to do that, I've made several tiers for different budgets, and at every tier you get access to something that you can't have here on YouTube, or you don't have access to here on YouTube. So there's like extra exclusive readings, early access to pick a cards. This pick a card went up early access to my patrons first before it came here to YouTube. So if that's something that you're interested in, I would love to have you on Patreon. It's been such an amazing experience to get to have that with my community, and I'm so grateful that we are over there. So that's, and if you would prefer to make a one-time contribution, this is not an expectation in any way, but I do have my Cashapp, Venmo, PayPal listed down below. I do accept tips for my readings. I usually pour them back into new decks for the channel. So I always appreciate that as well. But if not, no worries. There's still going to be free content available here on YouTube as well. Just you being here and watching is definitely more than enough. And I love you so, so much, my pumpkin. And I will speak to you again soon. Bye. All right, my beautiful pile number twos, welcome into your reading. So right on the top, we actually have a heart-shaped rose quartz. And I really feel like what this rose quartz can tell us about your inner child is that you are someone that has such a tender heart. You are someone that people have probably called sensitive or too sensitive, or they've really put you down or like mocked you for crying a lot as a kid. Or I feel like you're somebody that in your nature, you just have a very gentle heart. And I want to remind you, and so does Spirit, that this really is a gift. And I know that that can be hard to accept in a world that doesn't seem to value people like us, but this really is a gift. And it's not easy to stay soft in a world that wants to shape everybody into being really hard. And this is such a special gift because you have the ability to empathize with anyone around you. You might even be an HSP or an empath or somebody that you are always open and wanting to accept, support, and love other people. And this is such a beautiful thing. And Spirit just really wants to remind you of that, because I feel like people have probably said just some really unkind things to you because of the way that you naturally are. So just keep that in mind throughout this reading, that that is a gift that you possess, and it's a gift that you're supposed to have. It's meant for you. So we're just going to put that up over here. And I did already shuffle your oracle cards, but we're going to go ahead and just get a little bit of shuffling in with the tarot cards before we pull them out for you, just to see what your inner child has to tell us about what it needs or wants, or just any messages that are going to come through. All right. So we have for you the King of Swords, the Hanged Man. I'm just going to actually scoot this up over here. We have for you the Empress. Huh, that's interesting. I didn't know this was in here, but we got the blank card. Like there's just a blank card that's has a date on it. It says 11/19/2020. So that date could be significant to some of you. I feel like that's an extra message when you get something like this. Like we're going to talk about that. I already hear something coming through. So that's just a little extra. We have the Five of Cups and we have Strength. Okay. So I first want to really talk about this blank card that's here, because that was just like an extra bonus message. But I feel like for many of you in early childhood, you were somebody that literally the reason that you are so highly sensitive, and you probably are an HSP, which stands for being highly sensitive, a highly sensitive person. There's a book on this as well. I did a whole video talking about HSP as well that really covers a lot of this information, and I'll make sure to link it down below for you if you're interested. But basically with this blank slate, I feel like for you, you were made by your caretakers to be a blank canvas on purpose. They always kind of used you as a way to like bounce their own emotions, or like ultimately when you are made to be blank, to just kind of always be receptive to other people's energy, this can be so damaging to your inner child and even to your adult self now. If you are always having to people please, or you are always having to if you're always having to people please, or you feel like you always have to be the person that goes to the events that family puts on, or they're going to be mad at you, or, this to me really says that people just expect you to always be in this position because you were made to be that way. And Spirit wants you to know that this doesn't have to be how your life is. So I love that we got that like extra little message on the side. So we also have for you King of Swords, Hanged Man, the Empress, Five of Cups, and Strength. And with the King of Swords, Spirit wants you to know right off the bat, I feel like many of you think that you're dumb, or like you think that you're stupid. And probably because people have said that to you, but your inner child wants you to know that you are actually so smart, because the King of Swords is somebody that is so highly intelligent. Everybody goes to him for advice, him or her for advice. And so Spirit wants you to know that you are so intelligent. You are intelligent in the regard that maybe you actually do have like book smarts, but you also have this ability to put your words together in a really eloquent way. And that's probably also because that was what you had to do. It was in your best interest as a child to make sure that you always said the right thing, because you always felt responsible for the people's emotions that cared for you, that your caretaker's emotions. And so you always had to watch for the subtleties in facial expressions, in body language, in energy. And so you maybe have felt like you're not smart, but you actually are so smart. And your inner child wants you to recognize that. Now, with the Hanged Man, I also feel like this card, many of you have felt very stuck in something, like stuck in like a family role or stuck in a certain way. And Spirit is conveying with this Hanged Man that as you do this inner child work and begin to heal, because I sense that many of you have been very, very, very hurt. The Five of Cups is a card of deep sadness and grief. And I feel like many of you have kind of been stuck in this. Like, you feel like you can't have the conversations you need to have as an adult. You can't advocate for yourself in the way that you would like to. And then when you do advocate for yourself, it comes across as this like huge blow to someone else because it's like out of character for you. And Spirit is ultimately saying with this Five of Cups, it's because you're so deeply hurt. Oh, I'm so sorry. You're so hurt, and you've been hurt in the past and maybe even now in the present from those deep-seated early onset wounds. And Spirit wants you to thrive. And there is a huge message of like the Empress and strength being here. The Empress says that you are like the all creator. You are somebody that, because you have remained soft in this world, I have goosebumps. You have the ability to literally create worlds with your own mind, with your own intellect, and with the way that you feel. And Spirit also says that because of these experiences, you have been made stronger. Now, that doesn't cancel out what was done to you. I want to make that very clear. Whatever was done to you as a child, this doesn't cancel out the wrongdoing. Just because something has made you stronger, it doesn't cancel out the hurt that was done, and it doesn't make it okay because it served some kind of purpose for your adult self. It still is not okay, and it still is painful, and it still hurts. And your inner child is asking you to honor those things, to be that loving, supportive, caring adult that little you needed. And the best way for you to do that is to start to move in that way. And it's probably going to have to be small steps at first if you're someone that isn't used to doing this. It's going to have to be little things. It's going to have to be not answering the phone 1 out of every 4 times that somebody calls to rely on you when you really want to say no. Or not going to one event, or maybe going to the event but excusing yourself a little bit earlier than you normally would. It's going to take practice in that regard if you're someone that feels like you don't have the power to do that, especially if we're talking about an inner child that is used to having to be a people pleaser and cater to everyone around them. And it's going to take time to cultivate boundaries. And so be gentle with yourself. Spirit is saying be gentle. Like, even with this strength card, it's a depiction of a woman and a lion. And she's not trying to fight this lion. This, like, let's say the lion represents like that inner battle that you struggle with. Notice that the lion isn't necessarily charging at her either, but she is gently resting her hand and saying, it's okay, I'm here. And I feel like that is a big representation of the lion being your own inner child, and you being the kind, soft, loving adult that needs to soothe that inner like roar. And you have the capacity, because we have the Empress here, which is like the mother card. And this can indicate that maybe your mother is the person that did a lot of these hurtful things, but also that you are now someone that has the power to mother yourself. And that, if you take nothing else away from this reading today, I want you to know that you fully have the capacity to reparent yourself. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes dedication, but just start with something small. Start keeping small promises to yourself. If it's going to bed at a certain time, if it's any of those things about like interacting with others that I mentioned, start small and know that those things will add up over time. You will be able to do more of that over time. And you will start to trust yourself more and more and more over time. And it's going to be a slower process. It's something that we can't just flip a switch. That's not how inner child work works. So just start doing little things that honor that piece of you. And if anybody says that you're silly, know that they don't honor that part of themselves yet. So let's go ahead and take a look at your oracle cards. We have for you a time for healing, which I feel like is very accurate to what we're talking about in this reading today. So a time for healing. And we also have a win-win outcome is forecast with the full moon in Libra card. So I feel like for you, pile number 2, with these, Spirit is really conveying to you that even if it is difficult and you have to really work at healing this, it's going to be for your benefit. It is in your best interest to do this work and to go in it for yourself, because you're only going to get good things out of it. You're going to come more into balance with yourself. And what I think is so beautiful about this is we have this balance here. There's so much balance being depicted. There's the balance scale. The Empress is balancing 2 separate things. Even the King of Swords here in the middle is like balancing a sword, balancing his intellect. So I feel like for you, if you have felt like internally really a raging mess about everything, especially when it comes to your inner child, you're going to come back to equilibrium as you do this work. So we also have for you dream, sweet, sleep deep. Try saying that 8 times, okay? And we also have for you joy. So I feel like with dream sweet, this card really can indicate to us that your dreams contain messages for you. It can also be that a good way to honor your inner child and start to do the work, take naps. I know that sounds crazy, but something as small as just like a 15-minute nap when you're feeling tired, that is a huge honor to your inner child. And joy, this is asking you to ask yourself, what lights you up? What lit you up as a child? Was it playing Barbies? Was it coloring? Was it putting together puzzles? Was it making Play-Doh? Whatever that thing is that brought you joy as a child, try to add that to your life now. Your inner child wants to express itself. And if you need to go out and buy yourself a Barbie, do that. If you need to crack open the art supplies, do that. If you need to write, I feel like a lot of children also enjoyed writing. I mean, obviously that's a little bit like older children, but still, whatever it is, follow your heart. Just like this sculpture says here, follow your heart. And then we also have for you the universe. And I feel like with the universe card, this card is also here to remind you something really important. And that is that you do have a calling in this life. I feel like many of you feel like you don't have a place. You don't know what you're doing. You're on a hamster, like wheel-like type. And Spirit wants you to know that somebody else put that idea in your head that you're not special or you're not here for something great. You have a purpose. If you are seeing this card, you have a gift, you have purpose. And especially when it comes to working with your emotions and your intellect, there's something there for you. There's a reason, there's a reason that you were given these gifts, and you have what it takes to use them in a way that is empowering to yourself and possibly to others. And you do have a purpose here at this time. We also have for you the card of self-love, which this card really just is that. It is just the card of self-love. It is the card of giving back to yourself just for yourself, not for the betterment of anyone else, but yourself. So don't be afraid to do that for you. Don't be afraid to love yourself. Society teaches us that when we have self-love, it means that we're haughty or that we're self-centered or self-absorbed. And Spirit is saying, no, that's not what it's about. Having self-love is just honoring yourself and your decisions. And again, that is going to come with time. So the last two cards I have for you, we have Get Grounded. Empaths, highly sensitives, connect to nature. Oh my gosh. I literally have been telling you, I just got the chills again. I have been telling you during this whole reading that I think you're a highly sensitive person. Spirit is saying to get out into nature, get your feet on some grass if you're able to. I will always condone this because this is something that is so powerful in my own life as a highly sensitive person. Between most readings, I will go out on my front lawn and put my feet on the grass because it's so healing. Nature is healing for every person on the planet, but for people that are highly sensitive or empaths, nature does like wonders for us. This is why going on a walk can really calm our nerves, or laying down in the grass and doing some deep breathing exercises. This is something that for your inner child it wants. It might just want to play outside. That could be a really big message too. And then lastly, I have an affirmation to send you off with, and that is, when I lean on the faith of the universe, peace becomes real. Wow. I love this card for so many reasons. Number one, it talks about the universe, which we already have here. And it also has this picture of like, it looks like two owls, but this could be like a mother and child, a father and son, a father and a daughter, a father or a mother and a daughter, or a mother and son. And I feel like that's really where the healing needs to take place. And maybe you're someone that feels like, but I can't heal from this because this person's not willing to change. But the thing is, when it comes to our inner child, it's not about making other people change. It's about giving ourselves the love, respect, and support that we needed at the age that it wasn't given to us. And Spirit is saying, lean on faith, lean on the universe, lean on yourself, and know that you will be able to find peace. I love you so much, my pumpkin. Thank you so much for tuning in today into this reading. Please do not forget, when you stand up in your own authenticity, you empower everyone around you to do the same. I also have links down below for you for my Instagram, my TikTok, my podcast. And I do now have a Patreon where you can get early access to my YouTube readings up to a week before they go live. There's exclusive readings on there that you can't get anywhere else. There is card of the month. There's readings every single week that update the energy of the week. And it's just been such a beautiful experience opening that. So if you want to become a patron or you're able to, I would love to have you over there. Link down below for that. There are different tiers depending on what kind of budget you're working with. And if you would like to make a one-time donation to the channel, I pour all of it back into new decks for the channel. Some of the decks here we've actually purchased because of you. It is never an expectation, but something that is certainly always appreciated. So thank you all so much if you are able to do that. But again, I do not expect it. Just coming here and showing up to my readings and allowing me to be of service to you is honestly a dream job. Like, it is a dream in and of itself to get to do what I do. So thank you all so much. I love you, and I will talk to you all again soon. Bye, pumpkin. So there, pile number 3, and welcome in. This is going to be a message from your inner child, and they definitely want to be here. This flame over here is jumping. But for you, we have this rose quartz. Now, this rose quartz is a little bit lighter than the others, but still a rose quartz. And this one is a tumbled rose quartz. And what I want you all to notice about this is, you may not be able to pick it up on camera because of the lighting, but this tumbled stone has a pretty decent sized crack right in the middle of it. And I feel like many of you, that's kind of what has happened. You know, when we put a stone into or a crystal into a tumbler, it goes in there for a long, long, long time. And it also ends up like covered in a bunch of like mucky stuff, like whatever they put in the tumblers. I'm not a crystal expert, but whatever they put inside there, and it kind of gets to like sit in this filth for a while, and then it comes out this like beautiful tumbled stone. But this one in particular has like a pretty decent sized imperfection in it. And I want you to realize that a couple of things. Your inner child from this is ultimately stating that maybe that is where you've come from. Maybe you've been buried in just like a lot of crap, especially from early on, from family or mentors. And maybe that's left you with some really significant scars. But you're still beautiful, and your imperfections really do give you so much more in this lifetime. And it might be hard to see that, and it's okay if you want to be angry about them or bitter about them. That is fully acceptable and completely valid. But I feel like that is the message that's coming through just from the crystal alone. So, we're going to go ahead and let's place this one back over here. All right. And I did go ahead and pre-shuffle your oracle cards, but we are going to shuffle your tarot cards to see what your inner child has to say to us. We're just going to get a real brief little shuffle in here and see what we've got. Ooh, I'm trying not to blow that candle out with the cards. Okay, there we go. All right. Okay, so for you, we have the Wheel of Fortune. We have the Lovers. We have the Four of Crystals. The Nine of Cups. And the Ten of Diamonds. I'm getting that some of you that chose this pile maybe came from a really wealthy family, and not all of you, obviously, but I definitely feel like some of you did. And I'm telling you that because whenever we have a 10 of Pentacles, this is like generational wealth. This is wealth for an entire family line. It's not just wealth for like one season. Or maybe you came from a family of entrepreneurs. I feel like your parents possibly got married really young, even if they're not together now. And I feel like ultimately your home life was maybe something where more was able to be provided for you. Now, obviously, that's not going to be everyone. This could even be that your inner child is saying that this is going to be you in the future. And even if you've come from poverty, that doesn't mean that you're not allowed to flourish in your life. But for those of you that came from really wealthy families, that I feel like there was still just like a lot within that. But I do feel like the reason you were placed into this family, because we have the Wheel of Fortune, Spirit is saying that this was like karmically for you. You were blessed with good fortune because karmically that was something like you already in past lives had worked on karma. And so in this lifetime, either you came from wealth or you will be going into more wealth in your lifetime. Now, with that being said, let's talk more about this inner child. So we know that with oftentimes really wealthy families, even if your family wasn't wealthy, I feel like this can still apply. There maybe is a lot of financial issues. It is very rare that we see families, even nowadays, that have a lot of generational wealth that doesn't have a lot of generational trauma as well. So I feel like for you, if there is any trauma that has been passed down to you, it has literally come from a lineage of trauma. And with that being said, like, I feel like many of you, this kind of is similar to pile number one. Many of you feel like you're not allowed to be upset about your family or like have feelings about it because you had your means provided for you. Like you feel like other people, like you're not allowed to complain about your childhood or have misgivings about it because you were provided for in a certain way. And ultimately that doesn't make a fulfilled childhood. Just having food on the table, a roof over your head, those are privileges, and it's nice that, maybe you were able to have those. It's not a fulfilled childhood. Having the emotional support and stability that you needed to actually grow as a child, that is really, to me, where it counts. And I feel that many of you maybe didn't have that experience, or like there's just something about this that feels very like, or maybe there's like a big family secret. Like there's something that's, or for some of you, I'm also sensing that like your parents got married because they got pregnant with you. And like there's trauma attached to that because you feel like your parents maybe don't even really like each other. And it feels, even if it's on an unconscious level, it feels like it's your fault. Like your inner child feels like it's your fault. Like they got together because of you. And Spirit is saying you don't have to hold that. It's not your job to carry all of your family's trauma. It's not. It would never has been your job. It never will be your job. And even if you're gaining the tools and the knowledge that are going to help you now in life, I feel that you might have this really strong desire to want to help your family, to want to be someone that they can turn to, that you can give like sage, wise advice to. And the thing is they probably don't listen to you. And that probably is really frustrating. And in terms of your inner child, like you've really, I feel like many of you that chose this pile, you've really already kind of done a lot of work in it because I'm getting more conflict coming from like the now versus the past. But there are some of you that just frankly, your family won't listen to you, or friends or people around you aren't listening to you. Maybe because like you're the youngest or you're like so much younger. Like I'm getting like age complications as well. But I feel like you want to like heal the generational trauma in your family. But Spirit wants you to know that you're already doing that. You don't have to convince anybody else to be on your side or on your team. By you facing the fire and the flames that are the past of where you've come from, you're already healing your ancestors' trauma. You're already healing the generational trauma that is coming or has come up, because from you on, it's not going to continue. And that's the most important part. That's what you do have control over. You have control over how you react to situations, but you're not able to control how other people react. And I feel like you've been holding a lot of that. Like maybe you're someone that from really early on, you felt like you had to be the person that kind of like kept the family together, or like it was your job to make sure everybody was speaking or keeping some kind of family secret. And that has really left you with, maybe I feel like you're angry. I feel like you're angry. There maybe is a lot of like anger coming through, that's you're upset that you were even made to be put in this position, but you also get upset if you have siblings or other people that don't take that role as seriously as you. I feel like this pile is very serious. And those of you that chose this, your inner child feels like it always had to be serious. You were never allowed to really be a kid. And you maybe even yourself got married really young, or felt like you had to work right away in childhood, or uphold or run some kind of family. Like you maybe took care of other siblings as well. There it is. That's what's coming out. I'm like, what is this? This feels older. It's because you weren't allowed to feel like a child. You were made to feel like you had to carry the weight of the world and do everything for everyone else. There was a lot of expectation on you. And I feel like that's been really damaging to you and your relationships with your family. It makes it harder for you to understand people that maybe had extended childhoods, that were able to do a little bit more, have a little more fun, be a little more free. Because I feel like you might be an older sibling as well. If there's siblings in your family, I feel like you're older and you've been made to be a caretaker. And Spirit is saying, you don't have to hold that mantle. That's not your job. You do not have to hold that mantle, and you're allowed to create a different life for yourself. So let's go ahead and see what the oracle cards have to say for us. So we have, your dreams need a practical plan. Let's put this one right here. Your dreams need a practical plan with the full moon in Taurus, which we're in the middle of Taurus season if you're watching this when it's brand new. And we have, you're very close to achieving your goal. So I feel like for many of you, you have a lot of dreams. Your inner child self had a lot of dreams, and maybe those dreams were also really ripped away from you. And you're in a position now where you have the power to change that. And the reason that is coming out so strong is we have this 9 of Cups here. The Nine of Cups is the card of manifestation. It's wishes coming true. It's dream fulfillment. And so for you, you're very close to actually pivoting into this new way of being, closer than I think you might think. Like, you are closer to it. I feel like many of you that chose this pile have already done a lot of work on yourself. And Spirit wants you to know that you are going to be rewarded for doing this. But also, you do need to actually let the universe know what you want and come up with more of a plan. And we also have for you creativity. I feel like some of you maybe are really good at the arts, and we also have psychic protection. Okay, so some of you might be really good at the fine arts, and maybe this was also something that was put down by your caregivers. So your inner child feels like it's not allowed to creatively express itself either. So I would encourage any of you that chose this pile to make sure that you're allowing yourself to create. And it doesn't matter what that creation looks like. If it's writing, painting, photography, I'm hearing specifically for some of you. If it's, it does, like, as long as you made it and it didn't exist in the world before you did it, no matter what it is, your inner child is like dying to express itself, because creativity is deeply feminine. And often when we are put in caretaker roles as children, which is never our responsibility, when we're put in caretaker roles, we often don't get to express the feminine energy within all of us. We are not allowed to really kind of be in the divine flow of life. We're taught to really force achieve. And maybe you're somebody who was also really an overachiever. I'm feeling like there was just a lot of pressure for you to come out and be a certain way. And with psychic protection, I feel like those of you that drew this pile, you have some really ornate psychic gifts that have been suppressed because you haven't allowed yourself to express yourself. And you've taken on too much responsibility. Even as an adult, you're still doing it. So Spirit is saying you're very close to breaking through this, but you do need to have more of a practical plan in what you want to make, what you want to create, how you want to combat this. And you can have those psychic gifts still like activate within you. But the important thing is you're going to have to slow down and take time for yourself. And we also have for you the Observer and we are throwing cards. We also have for you the Higher Perspective. So the Observer and Higher Perspective, I feel like these cards actually kind of go hand in hand, because the Higher Perspective literally is an observant card. You have a higher perspective of the world and of the people around you, and you also have to become more observant. I feel like this is something that your inner child actually really wants from you. Is you might be someone that, because you literally were like a baby adult, basically you were made to grow up so much faster, you might feel like you have a higher perspective, but this is actually folly. This is like your ego coming through, and it actually makes it to where you don't connect with children as deeply, or people that are younger than you. You might be someone that has a hard time understanding, because you were always made to grow up so much faster, that I feel like ultimately there could be a spot of even jealousy there, especially towards younger siblings, if you have siblings or like younger people in your life. But Spirit is saying the more you connect with your own inner child and heal that part of you and let yourself be more childlike, you're actually going to gain the higher perspective that you've been lacking. And with the Observer, I feel like many of you also, when somebody like talks to you, because again, you've always been made to be the adult with all this information, right? With the Observer, many of you also might find that you're always trying to give advice instead of just listening and being observant. And Spirit is saying that these are two ways that you can actually really start to heal what has happened, is to become more observant of the children or the younger people in your life, and to ask what you can learn from these people. Because many of you, I feel like, maybe have thought like, what can I learn from you? I have so much more experience on you. But ultimately, that's really not how life works. We, in like a linear way, a lot of people think that if you're older, that means that you're wiser. Like we've all heard that phrase, you're older and wiser, but ultimately age has nothing to do with it. It's more about the experiences that you've had. Somebody that is much younger than you could have had a much harder life and had to endure so many more experiences. And because of that, also was forced to grow up so much faster. And so we never really know what stage or what place people are at in their lives. And I think Spirit is really asking you to come to a place of more empathy for yourself and that past version of you so that you can spread that empathy outwards. So we also have for you Mirror. Oh, yeah. I'm laughing because it's so true. So who or why is triggering you? That's the energy I'm picking up on. I feel like many of you feel very triggered by people that are more carefree than you allow yourself to be, because life's not easy. Life is hard. And we feel triggered when we see people, not everybody, this isn't going to be everybody, but many of you feel triggered by people that seem to be more easygoing, seem to allow themselves to just enjoy the sweet pleasures of life instead of go, 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 hustle, 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 work, 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 achieve, achieve, achieve. And that is triggering to you, even if you don't say anything to them or you're not ugly to them, internally you feel triggered. And this is being mirrored to you because your inner child is screaming at you at the top of its lungs. Please let me play. Please let me relax. Please let me be a child. And ultimately, that's going to be the key to your healing. And lastly, we have an affirmation for you, and that says, in every moment, the universe is conspiring to bring me toward right-minded thinking and the energy of love. I'm going to read that again. In every moment, the universe is conspiring to bring me toward right-minded thinking and the energy of love. So I think also in this, just expect that you're going to be supported along the path. Expect good things and good things will come. And know that no matter what, this is going to sound like such a fortune cookie thing, but I mean, you picked on a pile that was all about the inner, you picked on a reading that was all about the inner child and all like rose quartz and love filled. And so that's what you get with me sometimes is fortune cookie information. So I want you to realize, pile number 3, that love really is the most important thing in this life. Love is the highest vibration that we can attach our energy to as humans or align our energy with. Even when we're angry or frustrated or triggered or hurting, love is always the thing that brings us out of that. Love is always the thing that we can gravitate towards in every moment. And Spirit is saying, bring love into it. Bring love to your inner child. Bring love for yourself. And that's what's going to be mirrored back to you. So that's what I have for you, pile number 3. I'm sorry it took me a moment to channel that message. I felt like I was kind of confused at first, but I think ultimately it came through very quickly and very clearly pretty fast. So thank you so much for tuning in. Please do not forget, when you stand up in your own authenticity, you empower everyone around you to do the same. Do not forget to follow me over on Instagram, TikTok, my podcast. All of those links are down below. And if you feel called to do so, I do have a Patreon now where you get early access to my weekly YouTube content. You get extra readings that aren't available here. You get weekly energy readings. You get a card of the month, horoscopes. There's like so much stuff on my Patreon. So if you have the ability to do so, I would highly encourage you to come join the community over there. The link is down below. And if not, and you would just like to make a one-time donation to the channel, it is always appreciated. You absolutely never have to do it. It is not something I expect from any of you. But if you would like to, I do pour that money back into cards for the channel, camera equipment, anything that we need to kind of make better content here. I pour that back. So if you want to support the channel in that way, it is always appreciated, but never expected. Links to my Cash App, Venmo, PayPal down below. And I will speak to you all again soon. Bye.